Okay, friends. Good evening, everybody. We are in the process of starting this virtual meeting. This is the first virtual meeting we are having for our study circle, that is Prabhadevi Dadar CP Study Circle. The speaker for today is CA Mangesh Kinare. He is a fellow chartered accountant and a commerce graduate. He's done his LLB, and he is in practice for more than 28 years. His main area of practice has been GST and business consultancy. He has held various professional positions with our institute, ICAI, and also with WIRC. He's been the member, the secretary, and the chairman with WIRC. He has been the central council member of the institute, ICAI, and he has also chaired ICAI committees during his tenure over there. He has been on various committees and boards with our institute in various roles. Something very interesting, he's been nominated by our institute as member of Education and Continuous Professional Development Committee of South Asian Federation of Accountants, SAFA, for the year 17-18. Also represented our institute in WTO, World Economic Forum in Geneva, Switzerland in 2016, and been a member on behalf of IFAC to carry out due diligence of CPA Institute, Papua New Guinea. He was ICAI nominee on state level coordination committee headed by Chief Secretary Government of Maharashtra for monitoring financial sector issues and creating public awareness for 2 years. Other positions that he's held are that he's been on various panels as director or in other roles with the Government of India as well as the Government of Maharashtra. The other professional engagements that he has done are that he's been the lecturer in accountancy in a leading commerce college in Mumbai and also a visiting faculty for MBA, MMS and BMS courses. He has delivered lectures, presented papers at various seminars, written articles in Marathi newspaper, and has been a panelist on various television channels. With this, I would ask CA Mangesh Kinare to start his presentation. Just a small instructions for our members that we will not please do not raise the hands, that virtual raising of hands during the meeting. We will not be able to monitor that. And any queries that you have, put it on the Q&A option only. Questions we will be attending after the session is over. Also, a piece of mention, this is the first time, as I mentioned, this is the first time that our study circle is doing a virtual event. And we have got participants from Noida, Patna, and Aurangabad also. So this is fantastic. We've got a pan-India involvement. So, Sir Mangesh, sir, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Am I audible properly, Pritesh?
Fantastic, sir. You are absolutely audible.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Pritesh Joshi and Mihir Ketkar, conveners and deputy conveners of Prabhadevi Dadar CP Study Circle. It's my proud privilege to be associated with the study circle in the capacity as a faculty for the first webinar which the study circle is hosting. I have been knowing this study circle. My good friend, I don't know whether he's attending today, Hemant Parab, used to be conveners when I was in the regional council, and we have interacted with him. I don't know whether Hemant is attending today or not, but I have been interacting with him when I was in regional council, and my chairman at that time in the regional council when I was secretary, Sanjeev Lalan, was also one of the pioneer study member of the study circle. So I know this study circle in that respect. So first time I think I'm speaking here, but it's a good thing. And to start with my session, so thank you very much for this opportunity. I have been giving many sessions on this subject, and I always start because the kind of era in which we are right now. So I first of all wish and pray that all the participants, all the members, their family members, stay safe, stay home, and whatever best you can do work, I mean, in a limited manner, Let us do that. The critical time is there, and it is that we should remain safe. That is a key word these days. And I'm pretty sure that every one of us will come out of this pandemic situation, and then we'll start meeting once again. And I hope Pritesh, and he will call me in the physical meeting also later. Uh, the topic for today is regarding ICAI Code of Ethics. I have taken this and I have just recoined it in the sense that basically this topic has been made mandatory by the institute because there have been certain changes, and there have been certain important changes and important aspects which members have not been following or not seem to be following. Not that we are unethical per se, but certain aspects or certain things we have to be careful, which perhaps because of lack of knowledge or lack of awareness we are not doing. So institute wanted to be make kind of an awareness drive, and that is why this has been made mandatory. uh, in my council days from 16 to 19, 2016 to 19, when I was in central council, fortunately for me, I was 2 years in the disciplinary committee, disciplinary bench, as well as 2 years I was in the ethical standard board. So I had got an opportunity to deal with this code of ethics and disciplinary cases for many days. Disciplinary bench used to work a lot in those days, and now also it is working. So having got this opportunity, I thought that I should start at least making awareness. So this is a kind of a individual passion for me also. So with this brief introduction of the topic, let me start with this topic. I hope, Pritesh, anytime, I mean, I'm moving the screen, you are able to see, right? Next screen now I have taken. Yeah.
It is visible to us.
Yeah. If at all I'm moving the screen, whenever you don't find any, I mean, this thing, then please connect me that if it is not moving, right?
I'll do that. I'll let you know, sir.
Because I'm not able to see the screen. I'm able to see the screen, but I don't know whether it is moving or not.
Okay.
There are different software having different kind of things. So I have been speaking. So I think this is a Zoom. There are another 3 softwares which I am speaking. So I lost the track that where I am seeing and what screen I am seeing and each software. So friends, our institute, our chartered accountancy course has been at forefront, and we all know that it is a valuable course, or it has a recognition, uh, and its recognition is not only because of the toughness of the examination, but we are internationally recognized course. It's an international federation of accountant of which is a member, which is a we can say the body, international body, of which the institute also is a member. And being a member of that body, we have to follow certain ethical standards. So International Federation of Accountant, IFAC, itself has its own International Ethics Standard Board, which is ASBA. We can call it as an ASBA. And ASBA has laid down the standards or the code of ethics for its member bodies. And member bodies are supposed to adopt that or adapt that, one can say. And we have been doing that. Our existing, as of today, the code of ethics, which is there, it is a 2009 edition, which is based on 2005 edition of ASBA code of ethics. We have revised now the existing, that is as of today, the code of ethics which is applicable has 2 parts, part A and part B. Part A talks about the fundamental principles or principles of code of ethics, and part B is an application material depending upon the our the existing circumstances in our country and institute. Now we had to revise because there are so many years have gone. So we have revised part A of the code of ethics in 2019, on 4th February 2019 to be precise, and it has been issued as a guideline of the institute. This part A has been recoined as volume 1 of the code of ethics. As I said, it lays down or it specifies the principles of code of ethics, and how one can go about the code of ethics, what are the fundamental principles, what problems will be there, what care has to be taken. All this has been explained in this part A, or now it is volume 1. Part B, or now which is being recoined as volume 2, has been ready with, is ready with the institute, but institute has yet to completely publish it as such. I am being a faculty, a national faculty of ethical standard board, empaneled faculty. I am privy to, or I have been given certain changes which are bound to happen in part B or volume 2 now. Institute has also brought about volume 3, which is now, one can say, the compilation of relevant disciplinary case studies, which is there in volume 3. Now, all these entire code of ethics is going to be applicable from 1st July 2020. So, in a 10 days, 8 days time from now. Perhaps because of this pandemic situation, it may get extended also. I'm just telling you right now only. I don't have any inside information as such. This is just an anticipation. But otherwise, it is going to be get applied from 1st July 2020. So volume 1, volume 2, and volume 3. Volume 1 and volume 3 are there on the website of the institute. Volume 2 is yet to be completely published as such. So we will be dealing with the major changes, but while dealing with those major changes, certain important aspects, especially of volume 2, which are concerned with us, that also I'll be taking. Otherwise, taking only the changes, perhaps one cannot understand, or one might not have read, or one might not be aware with due respect to all the members. And that is why some aspects I'll be taking with respect to that, whatever changes are there, we will be discussing today. It is in my watch, it is 5:50 right now. I'm expected to suppose end this topic by 7:30. So I will stop at around 7:15. Is that okay, Pritesh? And we'll have some 15 minutes discussion or 15 minutes question answer. Is that okay? Fine. So for the next 1.5 hours, I'll deal with this topic and I'll try and cover it to the best of possible things. As I said, I cannot go in detail because if you consider this entire subject per se, it is at least 4 hours subject. At least, I'm talking at least. The Agra bench other day had 6 hour session on volume 1, 2 hours, volume 2, 2 hours, and volume 3, 2 hours. So I spoke there on volume 2, and past president sir spoke on volume 3, and even chairperson ESB ethical standard board spoke on volume 1. So it's that vast subject, and even 6 hours can also not be sufficient if we start going in the internal intricacies of different guidelines which are under part 2, volume 2, right? So with this preamble, I'm just starting. In order to understand the code of ethics, of course, we all know, but these are the 5 fundamental principles which are there in front of on your screen, which a chartered accountant is supposed to possess and embrace also. What are those? Integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, confidentiality, and professional behavior. I'm not going in detail of that because as a chartered accountant in practice for so many years, we know all these things, right? We are supposed to be having utmost honesty and integrity with the objective mind, not influenced by anybody else. And we must be having complete, professional knowledge of what we are doing, and we must be taking the care of it, what we are doing, due diligence is expected from us. Confidentiality is a key part because a chartered accountant is supposed to be a financial doctor per se. So in that sense, we must have a confidentiality about our clients' affairs which we are handling. And the last but not the least, in fact, it is covering the entire fundamental principles, rather entire profession of a chartered accountant, that is a professional behavior. In fact, according to me, the professional behavior, the fundamental principle of professional behavior covers everything. When I'm supposed to be behaving in a professional manner, means I'm supposed to be having honesty, integrity, independence, objectivity, and all. Is it not? So that is the 5 fundamental principles which we are always supposed to follow. Now, when we are supposed to follow these fundamental principles, at times the code of ethics identifies or has identified certain threats which may lead to violation of fundamental principle by us knowingly or unknowingly. Now, what are those threats? Threats are self-interest threats, self-review threats, advocacy threat, familiarity threats, and intimidation threat. As the name suggests, as a chartered accountant, we also can understand, but I'll give you quickly one example of it. Self-interest means whatever I am doing, I may develop interest in that, or I may have interest in that, and that may hamper my independence and integrity and objectivity. Self-review, typically small and medium practitioner observe all these kind of threats. Whenever, say small and medium practitioner go for assessment of income tax also. I'm just giving you a very simple example. So when we go for assessment in income tax and doing tax audit also, we may tend to audit in such a manner as we are going to present to income tax. So knowingly, unknowingly, we may try to step into shoes of the client, and then it is a self-review. We are reviewing what we have done. Sorry, it is advocacy threat I am talking about. Self-review threat is something which we have already done, and we are doing the audit. So, for example, client has asked us to set up his accounting system, or client has asked us to, computer system here. As per our advice, he has taken the software, and in that software only, or in that accounting system only, we are auditing. So we are reviewing what we have done. So at times, if there is any problem in accounting, in our audit, we may not go strictly look into that with the requirement, or with the kind of objectiveness which is required, and that may lead to self-review threat. As I said, self-advocacy means we advocate what we have already audited. Now, when we advocate what we have already audited, we will tend to audit in such a manner as we are going to advocate, and perhaps it may lead to the surpassing of some of the auditing principle, perhaps. And familiarity with threat, again, many of small and medium chartered accountants face, because we are so familiar with the client. At times, year on year, we are doing an audit of that client, or year on year, we are handling affairs of those clients. And we may become so familiar that at times we may overlook certain things. I know, so why I have to look it again? And there we may again violate this fundamental principle. And the last one is intimidation threat, which again is given by a kind of a major client to us. If any client is a major client in terms of a volume of fees, or kind of a work which we handle, if there are any problems, or any kind of a qualification which we want to give, that client may in fact give a threat to us, and kind of an intimidation threat to us, which may lead, which may also, we also will feel that if I give this, then he may leave me, right? And therefore we may tend to compromise certain of our principles. Now, friends, these are the threats which have been identified. And what we are supposed to do is, whenever we get certain works, whenever we are going to handle this work, we are supposed to, at the back of mind, analyzing whether any of these threats are hampering my follow, or my observance of fundamental principles. If yes, then I have to take certain safeguards. After taking safeguards also, if I am not able to completely overcome these threats, then I am not supposed to handle that work. That is entire crux of code of ethics. Now, these safeguards are of different kinds. I'm not going in detail of these safeguards. It has been mentioned. It is there on your screen. Basically, even what we are doing today, or what we do in CPE, is also one of the safeguards, because we are trying to develop our professional competence, right? So that is also one of these safeguards. So these safeguards have been clearly enlisted in the code of ethics. So whenever such an instance occurs, kindly refer to volume 1, and you will definitely find an answer to it. As I said, if I start going in each and everything, then time is infinite. Infinite time will be required for this, and therefore I'll just restrict here in terms of introduction of fundamental principles, threats to fundamental principles, and what kind of safeguards we can take for each kind of a violation of fundamental principles. Basically, when we talk about safeguard, let me highlight one thing, one important thing. Main safeguards are continuous review as well as the documentation. If we are going to take a review as well as documentation of what we are doing, these safeguards will be inbuilt safeguard, will start working in it. So this is something which is called as fundamental principles and threats to it. Now, I would take changes in volume 1. Quickly, I'll take 4 or 5 changes in volume 1. As I said, volume 1 is nothing but the basic principles, or the underlying principles which one has to undergo, or one has to follow when he's doing a professional work. Now, what are those principles? And in addition to those principles, certain new aspects have been introduced. I'm not saying exactly new, but certain new things are there, and certain things have been more, introduced in a more clarified manner. Old aspects only, but clarified in a new manner. So these are 4 or 5 important changes in volume 1 we will take, and then we'll go to the changes in volume 2. Now, one very major change which has come in Code of Ethics is this non-compliance with laws and regulations, or what you call is the NOCLAR. Now, non-compliance with laws and if you see here, these are the sections. So our Code of Ethics has the sections. Some of you may be knowing, some of you may not be knowing. So it is like a section or codified code of ethics. So non-compliance with laws and regulations, or NOCLAR, is one such principle which is perhaps not new to us, but we will have to look into it in a great detail now. It is already there in Standards on Auditing 2050. This principle has been introduced in ST 250, but I doubt how many of us look into it in that sense, in the sense that I'll explain you this and then you will understand. Now, NOCLAR means what? What does the code says? While providing the professional service to a client or employee, it's applicable to even an employee chartered accountant. A professional accountant, now chartered accountant, may come across certain incidents of non-compliance of or suspected non-compliance of laws and regulations. Now, what it's very clear that non-compliance or suspected non-compliance, first of all, and what non-compliance of laws and regulation. Now, while providing my professional duties, if I come across such non-compliance of laws and regulation or suspected non-compliance of laws and regulation, what is my duty? My duty is that I should not turn a blind eye to it because it is not my domain of work or because it is not directly connected with a financial statement. Because what our code expects us that we, if it is in a public interest, so we are serving the public interest, therefore as a people who serve or as a professional who is serving the public interest, we should bring such non-compliances to the notice of those charged with governance. Now, friends, what are the laws and compliances? I'll explain first of all what are the laws and compliances. So, laws and regulations. What are the laws and regulations of which the compliance is needed? There can be two types. One is the laws and regulations which are directly connected with the financial statements and having the impact, financial impact on the financial statement. Then the other are the such laws and regulations which does not have direct impact or which does not have which are not directly connected with the financial statements or not having financial implication at such at that juncture, and therefore we'll have to understand these laws and regulation in that respect. Generally what we do is we try and tackle the laws and regulations which are there, which are on the first type. In kind of even a tax audit you take or any kind of audit, what laws and regulations we look into? A Companies Act, Income Tax Act, GST, PF, ESI at the most, profession tax, for the banking laws, for example, I'm just telling. So we don't look into the business laws per se or laws which are connected with that business. Now, what does NOCLAR says? NOCLAR says you must go beyond all these financial laws, right? And you must look into whether there is any violation or any non-compliance with other laws and regulations also. I'll give you one very simple example. Say, for example, I am doing a tax audit of a chemical factory. Now, when I'm doing a tax audit of a chemical factory, I find out that during the year there was a 1 lakh rupees penalty for non-observance of certain environmental guidelines. Now, what generally I do, suppose it is not a company also, forget about the company. What generally I do, generally, if at all, if it is a company, then perhaps in, somewhere in the CARO, I will report, but I will not qualify definitely. And definitely I'll put in the tax audit report saying that this is a disallowance for penalty of rupees 1 lakh. My job ends here. I feel that, yes, I can't go beyond this right now. The NOCLAR says that no, in the public interest, you cannot turn blind eye to it. While providing your professional service, now you have come across this violation or these non-compliance with laws and regulations. So please go into detail and find out what is this penalty about, what kind of violation has been made, whether this violation is a serious violation, whether it will have an impact, adverse impact on the financial statement, on existence of the business, or going concern concept. No, you'll have to analyze that. And to that extent, one has to go beyond our financial laws. That is the main principles of non-compliance, non-compliance with laws and regulation. ASBA has given the, one can say, the illustrative list of laws which is there on the screen. One can see from that fraud, corruption, bribery, everything has been covered, right? Environmental protection, data protection, public health and safety. So we have to go much beyond our domain of financial laws. So I can say, and you will agree, that the scope of our audit has been increased a lot. We are supposed to be knowing that if there's a violation, then what are to be reported. Now, whether it means that I have to know all the law? No, because we need not know all kind of laws or all the laws on the earth. What is expected is, as the first line which has been highlighted or underlined, while providing a professional service, if I observe there is any violation, right? If it comes to my notice, and that is why I said in the beginning only, documentation is very important. If I observe that such kind of a violation is there, then only I have to go in detail. When I'm going for audit, I should not have that thing in mind. No, no, यहाँ पे कुछ fraud है क्या देखना है, यहाँ पे कुछ violation है क्या, environmental laws का और public health का मुझे देखना है. That mindset need not be there. But definitely, once I observe something in the accounts, something while in the vouchers, something in the records, my eyes should not be turned blind to it, because just because it is not connected with the financial aspect. So one has to be very careful, and one has to have open eyes and ears and everything when we are actually auditing as per this principle. Now, as this Noklar principle says that you need not look into it if it is a clearly inconsequential or personal in nature or unrelated to the business activities of the client. As I said, one has to look into it only if one come across it during the time or at the time of providing the professional service. So, and if I come across that, I have to report it to those charged with governance. Now, who are those charged with governance? Generally, it is the management or the people who are controlling the company. If if now management or those charged with governance, if the I can say the violation or the non-compliance is much grave in nature, then one has to go beyond, as has been explained. If it is a completely serious violation in case of a company, one has to even report to the SEBI if it is related to fraud, etc. So it all depends on the facts and circumstances of the case. Now, one will feel that my scope has been increased, but our institute has made one carve out, because this is a fundament, this is a principle which is accepted globally. And therefore, as per ASBA directive or ASBA code of ethics, we have to take it in our code. But we have made one carve out in it, and we said that initially, considering the situation or the practice profile of our chartered accountants in country, we will make it applicable initially only to the listed entities, and that too only for the audit assignments in India. And therefore, right now, or when this code will become applicable, this NOCLAR principle will be applicable to only listed entity audits in India. Now, although it is like that, I thought that I should highlight this because this is one major change in the approach of audit which is going to come. And although it may not be applicable to many of us, I feel, friends, we at least should have some kind of a trial run going on when we do this audit in the next year or till it becomes applicable to the lower level entities. So we can have some kind of a trial run when we do this kind of a audits in our professional life. So this is one major change, NOCLAR. Second change, as I said, some changes, clarification changes. It is not that something new has been brought, but we were having a know your client policy on 1st January 2017. Importantly, we have brought out this, institute has brought out this. Now this has been included in section 320 of the Code of Ethics. So earlier it was simply by way of guidelines. Now it has been included. These guidelines have been included in volume 2 also. And here also in volume 1 also, it is very clearly mentioned that whenever there are appointments or changes in appointments, I have to upgrade my know your client policy and get the information about my client. So otherwise what will happen is, at many times, I don't want to name the places, but at certain places people do a tax audit, but they don't know the client also, right? Because it comes from tax practitioners and all. So we have to be very clear that know your client policy has been now made more applicable in more emphatic manner. It was applicable earlier also, it has now been made applicable in emphatic manner. Now, as far as communication is concerned, when there's a change in appointments, you can see the last arrow point in this. Very importantly, till now, what was happening was the person who has been appointed, a new auditor, used to communicate, and there was no duty on the outgoing auditor. Now, this code gives or lays down the duty on the predecessor accountant or auditor also to respond to the communication. Correct. Earlier, this earlier code has been silent on this. So the new change is that one has to respond to the communication whenever there is a change. And in what way it should respond? That he shall comply with the relevant laws governing the request. So what is our law? Our law is our code of ethics of responding and provide the information honestly and unambiguously. So one has to provide this information to to an incoming auditor. So that is again a welcome change. We'll deal that when the communication will deal in the volume 2 also. Now, there's another change which has come, or rather, which has been, I can say that reintroduced in volume 1. It was there as a self-regulatory measure, that if in a revised code it has been mentioned that where for 2 years the gross annual professional fee from audit client and its related entities is more than 15% of total fee of the firm, then firm shall communicate that with those charged with governance. Now, this kind of a provision was already there. It was there in the guidance as a self-regulatory measure in the guidance note on independence of auditor. And earlier the limit was 40%. And but in that self-regulatory measure, it was mentioned that if your fees from the one audit client and its sister concern goes beyond 40% of your total fees, then you should not do the audit of that client. There was a complete prohibition earlier. Now here there is no prohibition per se. What they say that for 2 years, if consecutively the fees is more than 15%, one should communicate with those charged with governance, inform them that you are my major client, so I will have to take additional care. Review and documentation requirements will have to be dealt in that size. That's explained in the Code of Ethics, Volume 1. Now, this ceiling will not be applicable where total fees is more less than 5 lakhs rupees. That is for small practitioners, it has been included. And this fees or this kind of a limit is also not applicable for the fees which we get from the clients out of an empanelment or a government allotment, say a government audit, CNAG audit, or RBI audits, and so on and so forth. So these fees will not be, this limit will not be applicable to that kind of an audit. uh, Institute has come out because there is a lot of issues in this. People have started thinking, "अरे 15% से ज़्यादा नहीं है, मतलब क्या problem हो जाएगी?" So first of all, Institute has brought out a clarification on 11th May 2020 saying that there is no prohibition for acceptance or for doing the work of such kind of client. There is no prohibition. You can do it, right? And secondly, this limit is applicable only to an audit client. It is not applicable to others, other clients. If I'm doing only and only tax practice, then it is not applicable to this. So there's no prohibition and it is applicable only to the audit client. Having said that, what I understand, I'm not privy to the information, as I said, but what I understand that council is once again thinking on it whether some tinkering, more tinkering should be made to this provision. And I'm not right now saying confirmly, we may see some more clarification or some more kind of an amendment or change in this provision. Now, I'm not dealing with this because this is kind of a change which is perhaps applicable to us, but it's a kind of, we can make positive use of it. Overdue fees, if it is there, say last year's fees is not paid till current year, there are certain measures which have been explained, that is get at least a partial fee or get reviewed your audit work. Now at least we can make use of it and highlight to our client, देखो अगर आपने पैसा नहीं दिया तो मुझे at least review करना पड़ेगा, additional cost आ जाएगी आपको. No, that kind of a thing at least we'll make a use of it, but this is a regulation for us. That is, if the last year is not paid, now it may create a interest rate, self-interest rate. It means that it is as if we have given loan to a client for 1 year. Right? And so it is a interest rate which is created, self-interest rate which is created in a client. That's what the code says. In fact, we can make use of it for getting our fees in time. That's what I feel. Importantly, one change has been made, and this is very relevant, I feel, for small and medium practitioners. Section 607 and 608 has identified management responsibilities and administrative responsibility. Now, what does it say? That a chartered accountant firm shall not assume a management responsibility for an audit. Now, what is management responsibility? Management responsibility is giving or stepping into the shoes of management, as it is mentioned. However, providing service, advice or recommendation to assist the management of an audit client, that is not prohibited. right, to discharge their responsibility. That is not prohibited. That is not treated as management responsibility. Typically, management responsibility means taking decisions for the client. Now, we are not supposed to take decisions for audit client. When I say audit client, it is even a tax audit or GST audit clients. So what they have done is, okay, you can't take the management responsibilities, but definitely you can take the administrative responsibilities or administrative services. You can give it to the client, and they have highlighted administrative services in an illustrative manner. And here I think we should look into it, or we should ponder it in great detail. What are those services? Word processing services. Fine, no problem. So processing, no issues. Some letter preparing or something under the instructions of client, no problem. Preparing administrative or statutory forms for client approval. Whenever we prepare any form, right, it should be for client approval. Unless and until the client approval is there, this form cannot be submitted. Preparing, fine, but get the approval of the client. Next, submitting such forms as instructed by client. After getting approval, get an instruction from the client that, okay, now we can submit it. So what I mean to say here is filing of returns, etc. One has to be very careful, and documentation has to strengthen now. It is not that earlier it was requirement was not there, but this requirement has been emphatically stated in the code of ethics now, that you can take only, or you can render only administrative services to the client. And therefore, my friends, as far as taxation services are concerned, filing services are concerned, one has to be very clear that whether the client approval is there, whether the client has said is to submit it. So all such details or all such kind of documentation we must keep with us. That is one important change which has come. Next is again a clarificatory change, but this has been clarified, and one important aspect has been clarified here. Now, what does this change say? Uh, Taxation services provided to audit clients have now been explained. Now, what the code says is tax return preparation, there is no threat. So you can prepare a threat, but subject to the fact that in the earlier slide we have seen it is being done as an administrative responsibility. Tax calculation for the purpose of preparing in accounting entries. Now it may create a self-review threat. Now when it is creating self-review threat, one has to bifurcate the duties, that the preparation of calculation is done separately by a person who is doing an audit, other than person doing an audit, right? So one is a separate, these should be a separate person, one who is doing an audit, one who is doing a calculation of taxes for the accounting entries. Tax planning and advisory services, it might create a self-review or advocacy threat. I have explained to you earlier also. So one has to be very careful when you are auditing somebody, their planning and advisory should be done in such a manner that it will not be coming in your audit, in between your audit services. Again, documentation and complete review work is important. Review by other person or done doing by other person. Valuations involving tax services involving valuation, right? One can perform these valuations only if this valuation will not have a direct impact on financial statements. And very importantly, assistance in resolution of tax dispute. Now, assistance in resolution of tax dispute might create a self-review and advocacy threat. So appropriate safeguards to be taken. What appropriate safeguard? Again, somebody else do, I mean, whoever is doing audit, the assistance in the dispute resolution should be done by somebody else in the firm. If it's not a partnership firm, perhaps you'll have to take help of somebody else. More importantly, what is mentioned here is such service should not be provided to an audit client if it includes or if it amounts to acting as an advocate for the audit client. So you cannot act as an advocate for an audit client in tax disputes. Now, let me tell you that what is dispute? Simple assessment is not a dispute. So helping in assessment perhaps would not have the problem, but handling the appellate matters for the audit client will create these kind of threats, and it is explicitly prohibited now by Code of Ethics. So this is again a major change which is going to happen, or which is there in the Code of Ethics. Again, I repeat, it is not that it was not there. Earlier also it was mentioned, but earlier code was silent. Earlier code was also saying that please assess the threats which are there, but earlier code was silent on this specific aspect. So now it has been very clearly clarified. So these are the major changes which I thought that in code of volume 1 we will deal. Now we'll go to the volume 2. As I mentioned on screen, in volume 2, I have taken the provisions in black font, the commentaries are in the red font, and whatever changes are there, these have been taken in the purple font. So please refer to that in that respect. I mentioned that volume 2 is nothing but an application material which is there for fundamental, basically principles in volume 1. Now, what are those application material? The provisions of CA Act, that is Chartered Accountants Act, Chartered Accountants Regulation, schedules to CA Act, accounting and auditing standards, statements, standards and guidance note, council guidelines and announcements, self-regulatory measures, and announcement and clarification by ethical standard board. For the sake of simplicity or understanding, what I have done is I have divided this presentation in different aspects which are relating to our profession. And these aspects I have dealt it with the clauses of Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 to Chartered Accountants Act. Please excuse me. Now, what is Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 to the Chartered Accountants Act 1949? Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 the Act defines the misconducts by Chartered Accountant. So, different instances of misconducts have been defined in this Schedule 1 and Schedule 2. Schedule 1 consists of misconducts of chartered accountants, basically which are of an internal in nature. So chartered accountant to chartered accountant, or within the institute, whatever behavior of CA is there. So that is dealt in Schedule 1. Whereas Schedule 2 is when we are exposed to the outside world, what kind of misconducts can be committed by chartered accountants, that has been mentioned in Schedule 2. And naturally, the misconducts which are mentioned in Schedule 1 are lesser in gravity, in the sense that the punishments for that is lesser as compared to the misconducts extended in Schedule 2. The punishments for misconducts in Schedule 1 are maximum either of three, that is financial penalty of rupees 1 lakh, or suspension of COP for maximum 3 months, or the reprimand letter which is issued to a chartered accountant, or any combination of this. Whereas the punishments punishment in Schedule 2 can be financial penalty of rupees 5 lakhs, maximum punishment I am talking, or lifetime suspension of COP, or reprimand letter, or a combination of any of these things. So you can understand that the misconducts which have been defined in Schedule 2 are slightly more grave in terms of the punishments which have been defined. So with that understanding, we'll go with the next level of next presentation about volume 2, with certain aspects which are we normally have the difficulties in while our discharging our duties. So let's see what is that. First, sharing of fees or profits. Now, clause 2 and clause 3 of part 1 of Schedule 1 deals with that. Now, we are explicitly prohibited to share the fees or profits from our profession with persons other than our partners, right? Persons other than chartered accountants. But there are exceptions to it. Now, clause 2 and clause 3 are mirror clauses of each other. So, clause 2 talks about when I share the fees with somebody, and clause 3 talks about when I get the share from somebody, right? So, it prohibits any kind of sharing. I cannot share, or I can't get share in other fees also. As I said, the sharing of fees or profits with a partner or a partnership firm is allowed, and there are exceptions for such non-sharing. So I can't share with the other than chartered accountants, except for, there are three exceptions which is mentioned. As I said, member of an institute, or a partner, or retired partner, that I have seen. The legal representative of the deceased partner. If any partner is deceased, then with their legal representative, I can share the fees or profits of my firm. Importantly, any member of any other professional body, or with such other person having such other qualification as may be prescribed. Now, these qualifications, as I said, clause 3 also, it is a mirror clause, so I can get share from these type of people also. So for the purpose of these clause 2 and clause 3, regulation 53A and 53B has defined certain kind of a principles, certain kind of a professionals or qualifications, member with qualifications with whom we can share the fees. So what are those? I mean, it is there in front of screen. I am not reading it. Typically with company secretaries, ICWAs, architects, actuaries, etc., I can share the fees, or I can get the share in their fees. Now, what do you mean by sharing the fees? Means what? When we execute any work together, And suppose for the purpose of getting the fees, it's not a partnership. For the purpose of getting the fees, suppose the client is going to give fee to any one of us, then we can share the fees amongst us or between us. That is the clause 2 and clause 3, exceptions to clause 2 and clause 3 at the regulation 53A of Chartered Accountants Regulation 1988. Now, of course, whenever there is a statutorily defined that we can share the fees, we can share the fee if it is statutorily allowed. As you all know, that some years earlier in a Maharashtra cooperative societies, we were supposed to share the fees or deposit the 20% fees with the government of Maharashtra or Department of Cooperation. So whenever any statute says like that, we can do the sharing of fees. Now, as a commentary in this clause 3, they have introduced one change or one clarification. And what is that? Very important. Referral fees amongst the members has now been permitted. It has been mentioned in Code of Ethics that referral fees amongst the member has now been permitted. Now, friends, let us understand one thing. There is a difference between sharing and referral. Sharing means we execute the work together, we get fees as one fees, and then we share with each other. Sharing is allowed with members also and these other professionals also. Whereas referral is allowed only with members. Correct? So referral fees means what? In volume 1, it has been nicely explained. I draw your attention to a fundamental principle number 5, that is professional behavior. When we do this kind of a thing, I'm quite conservative in this, and my conservative approach says that referral fees is distinctly different from the cut or from the mere cut or share without disposing any duties. Now, in volume 1 also it has been mentioned that when referral one is taking or one is giving, it should be for the continuing client. So I have a client where I'm doing a GST work. He comes to me asking, boss, I want to have a bank finance and I am whether you can give me services. I said, no, I can't give services because I don't do that. I know a friend of mine who is a chartered accountant. I will refer you to him. You please go to him. Now he goes there. His work is done. He gives a fees to that chartered accountant. That chartered accountant, or I can take a referral fee from that chartered accountant. So for my existing client, if I refer the work, I can take the referral fee and he can give me the referral fee also. But I said that the difference in referral and cut practice is very thin line of demarcation. Even out and out new client, it is not my client at all. Somebody has come to me through some reference. He is not my client. I don't know him. I don't deal with him. And he says that I want to have a bank finance. I refer it to somebody else and then I get something. I don't think it's a referral fee. Volume 1 also, it is very clearly mentioned. It is for a continuing client. Right? So one has to be very careful when in actually implementing or using this clause. But good thing, referral fees among the members for our own clients has been now allowed. So this is regarding sharing and referral with the change also. As far as entering into partnership, we all know that we cannot enter into partnership other than a person who is holding a COP in India. Now, there are exceptions to it. Now, what is the exceptions? Exceptions is those professionals which we have seen under Regulation 53A and 53B. With them, we can enter into partnership. So our law is not prohibiting the entering into partnership with those people, but it has been now clarified. You can see in the purple font on your screen that multidisciplinary partnership, although this clause is not prohibiting that, it is not allowed despite regulations of 53A and 53B. Multidisciplinary partnerships are not allowed because our law does not prohibit it, but the respective laws of other professions does not have such kind of enabling provisions. Naturally, our institute has not taken initiative to form the modalities for it. Unless they come with certain provisions in their law, how can we go ahead and form with the modalities? And therefore, till the time their law is amended to include these modalities and till the time institute modalities have been formed, we cannot enter into multidisciplinary partnership. Why I'm taking this is every time people ask कि हमारे law में अगर ये enabling provision है, हम क्यों नहीं कर सकते multidisciplinary partnership? So council or the code of ethics has now clarified. It is being mentioned in code of ethics very clearly now. Correct? Next aspect in which there are a lot of new, I'm not saying changes, but there are certain changes, certain clarificatory changes have been included. That is solicitations and advertisements, etc. by chartered accountant. There are three clauses which are relevant as far as part 1 of first schedule is concerned. Clause number 5, 6, and 7. I will deal very briefly with those clauses and go ahead. Securing professional work business by other means. Typically, a young chartered, whenever a person becomes chartered accountant, he starts issuing the roving inquiries, the letters saying that, I am newly qualified. So I understand that your bank or your this company maintains the panel of chartered accountants. So I'm interested in that. So that kind of thing, roving inquiries, you cannot get the work by these means. So that kind of inquiry, roving inquiries are not allowed. Clause 6 talks about solicitation. One cannot solicit the work, professional work, either directly or indirectly by advertisement, circular, personal communication, or interview, or any other means. So I cannot go on soliciting the work directly or indirectly by these means. So I cannot advertise, I cannot issue a circular. I know there are circulars which have been issued, which comes in newspapers and all. Such kind of circulars cannot be issued by chartered accountants. Personal communication also I cannot make to solicit the work. And also I can't give, I'm allowed to give interviews. You will see that those provisions also later on. But in those interviews also, I cannot solicit the work. So if suppose somebody is called tomorrow on television, which instances happened with me also in past, and suddenly a question comes that, sir, will you answer our queries privately? We will call to you. I mean, you should desist from commenting on there, because your any positive comment will lead to a solicitation through an interview. So interview should not lead to a solicitation. So that kind of a direct or indirect solicitation not allowed to us. Now there are two exceptions to it. We can ask the work, we can apply or request the work to another chartered accountant. That is allowed. That is purely allowed by this clause, exception to this clause. And second, we are allowed to respond to a tender subject to the tendering guidelines of 7th April 2016. Now, those tendering guidelines are one-page guidelines only. I'll briefly just let you know, because there are many questions comes on this. Chartered accountants are generally not allowed to respond to the tenders, but they can respond to certain tenders. Now, what is that? We are not allowed to respond to the tenders where the work which has been specified in tender is statutorily, I'm repeating, statutorily restricted only to the chartered accountants. We are allowed to respond to the tenders which are where the work is statutorily not restricted to a chartered accountant. So typically, which are the works statutorily restricted? A company audit, a bank audit, I'm talking about statutory audit, a tax audit. These are all restricted to, statutorily restricted to chartered accountants. The work which are not statutorily restricted to chartered accountants are concurrent audit, internal audits, the project finance, the taxation work, even a GST audit to that extent, right? So it is not statutorily restricted. So these work I can apply for tender. For the work which is statutorily restricted to a chartered accountant, I cannot apply to a tender. There is one exception to it. If minimum fees is prescribed, minimum I'm talking about, minimum fees is prescribed in that tender, I can even apply to those works or respond to those tenders which are pertaining to the work which is statutorily restricted to chartered accountants. So if any company's statutory audit tenders comes, if minimum fees is prescribed in that, I can apply for that tender. If minimum fees is not prescribed for that, I cannot apply for the tender. But if a concurrent audit or internal audit tender comes of a company, I can very well apply for that tender even if there is no mention of a minimum fees there. So that is regarding responding to a tenders. Now, the seventh clause talks about advertisement of professional and other achievements. Now, you all know that as a chartered accountant, socially we are very active. We get a lot of degrees, diplomas, and different kind of accolades and certifications. But on our chartered accountant's card or on our professional card, we are not supposed to put any kind of such your achievements or attainments other than your degree of chartered accountancy, degree which is recognized by the degree from a university which is a recognized university or AICT recognized institutions, or the diplomas of ICAI. Other than that, we cannot give any kind of a achievements or attainments on our professional stationery, visiting cards, letterheads, signboards, etc. So typically, if I'm a president of social club, say Dadar social club or whatever it may be, Dadar club, so I cannot give that on my professional card. If I have achieved, if I have got something, some award, local award, I cannot give on my card or visiting card or letterheads these kind of achievements or attainments. That provision is there in clause 7. Interestingly, there is one proviso in clause 7 which perhaps is contradicting, perhaps one may feel like it is not contradicting, but one may feel that it is contradicting clause 6 which you have seen earlier. What does that proviso says? Provided that a member in practice may advertise through a write-up setting out the services provided by him or his firm and particulars of his firm subject to such guidelines as may be issued. So I can prepare a write-up of my firm and I can advertise through it. Now, what are the guidelines? These are the write-up guidelines. It is there in front of you, and these guidelines have now been included in the volume 2 specifically. Now, write-up means a writing of a particulars according to the information given in guidelines, setting out various services rendered of the and any writing or display which can be issued, circulated, or published by way of print or electronic media. I can circulate it also by way of print or electronic mode. So what is the write-up? Now what are the contents of the write-up? Let's see this. This is the existing provision which is there in front of you in the first pointer, and the changes will be discussed in the subsequent slide. Write-ups can include the photograph of chartered accountant, services provided, but it should not be claiming superiority or it should not be indecent, sensational. It should not contain testimonial endorsement or should not include the names of the client, and it should not be more than font size 14. So typically, what is write-up, friends? Now, to my mind, conservatively, when I think, to my mind, write-up is nothing but whenever somebody asks you, "अरे आपके firm का एक profile जरा मुझे भेज देना." Now that profile is nothing but a write-up. Additionally, एक शायद photograph उसमें addition है. Correct? That is nothing but a write-up. In that profile or write-up, what is mentioned is what is my firm, where is my office, what are the details of communication, telephone, email, etc., etc. Who are the partners, who are the associates, chartered accountants, or who are the employees, the qualified employees, non-qualified employees, article clerks, offices, then kind of a services rendered by us. This is nothing but profile or write-up which I am providing. I cannot have any kind of testimonials or endorsement in it. Nobody can say somebody has recommended my name. I cannot mention recommended by so and so, right? If I'm handling a very prestigious work, I cannot say that we are handling this major work. So services rendered can be given, but major client's name cannot be given, or other client's name cannot be given in the write-ups. So such write-ups one can issue or circulate by way of print or electronic media. Now tell me one thing, if I'm preparing this write-up, if I put it in Times of India, is there any work which is going to come just because of that? No. So this limited kind of an advertisement is allowed. And it is allowed because many times people ask for firm profile, ask for sending it through mail, ask for sending it through electronic mode or print mode, and that is why it is being allowed in that limited sense. Now, friends, important change which has come, or important aspect which is there, that there is one announcement of the Institute on 11 December 2019. Now, that announcement has been actually clearly included in new code volume 2. That announcement says that a chartered accountant cannot become member of any network where such network has been formed as a medium of referral of professional work. And that such network, if such network is not of chartered accountant, not registered with the institute, and not governed by the institute guidelines. Now, there are many members who have become a member of such certain networks. I don't know whether I should name or not, but everybody knows these networks where typically people from different businesses and profession come together. Geographically, these are formed. One or two members from each profession or business are there. So in these networks, there cannot be hundreds and thousands of chartered accountants. There will be hardly one or two chartered accountants in each network. The purpose of forming this network is sharing the work amongst themselves. Now, such kind of membership of such kind of network is not allowed to us. We have said that in the code of ethics, in this announcement, that we can become a member of it is a network of a chartered accountant, and if it is registered with the institute and governed by institute network guidelines. So typically, now network can be physical meeting network, or even I repeat, even the kind of an aggregator kind of network. So on the website, we receive a call, we'll maintain your name on our website so that you will get a professional work. So much fees is there. Such kind of a mentioning of our name on different website is not allowed. Directories, directories. If somebody is maintaining directory, we can become our name can appear in the directory, but there are restrictions on that. There are guidelines for restrictions in printing the name in directory. And those guidelines say that our name should be there only if there's a separate, you can say the page or separate section for chartered accountants. There is a logical way of putting the names of chartered accountants in that directory. There is no priority for anybody. Fees charged in the same manner. So my name should come in bold or my name should come first. That kind of thing should not be there. So in a limited manner, we can have our name in directories, but becoming a member of network or a website or an aggregator is not allowed as per these guidelines. Somebody asked me whether I can have my what is a LinkedIn or Facebook profile or not. Now one can have that subject to, we have again websites. We can have our websites, but there are website guidelines for it. The website should be in a pull mode and not push mode, right? So that guidelines are, as I said in the beginning only, if I start going into each guideline, the time is infinite time is required for it. So I will not go in those guidelines. Guidelines one can refer, and now it will be included in volume 2 specifically. So these website guidelines clearly define how we should maintain our profiles, social media profiles also. Now, as I said, this is regarding existing provisions, and one new provision that network has been included now specifically. I've already mentioned that certain press advertisements can be allowed, which is giving a factual information regarding change in partnership or addresses, etc. It is there in front of you. Greeting cards, invitations are generally allowed. Now, I already mentioned that on my card, you cannot, on my card, I cannot print president of so and so club or established things. When my firm is established, all these things I cannot put. If I'm expert in something, I cannot put that on my card. On my card, it should be only a chartered accountant or partner or proprietor, right? I'm an ITAT lawyer or finance consultant or GST expert or any such kind of thing, valuation expert. There are certain exceptions to it. We'll come to that. There are only 2 exceptions which are given. So other things we cannot mention on our stationery. These are the guidelines which will now be included. These are there already. They are separately. These guidelines have been issued. Now these are compiled and issued in the volume 2 specifically. As I mentioned, these are the changes now. As I mentioned again earlier, changes need not be, it doesn't mean that earlier these things were not there. Changes means these have been, some changes are new things, some changes are clarificatory. Now these are clarificatory in nature. Members being directors in companies or members of political parties or CSLs of political parties, etc. See, I cannot print that on my card. If I'm a director, independent director in a company, I cannot put on my professional card that I'm independent director in the company. So CSL, all kinds of things cannot be put on my card. As I said, there are 2 exceptions: insolvency professional and registered valuer, which are qualified as per the IBBI examination as well as RVO examination. Now, these people can put on their chartered accountant, so and so chartered accountant's partner, insolvency professional or registered valuer. That can be put on the card or stationery. Otherwise, it cannot be put. In addition to recognized universities and AICT and institute degrees and diplomas, institute are also allowed that if you have taken any degree from a accounting body, international of a different country, with which the institute has mutual recognition agreement. And if you have taken, say for example, I'm just giving a Canadian Institute of CPA has an MRA with the institute. If I do tomorrow Canadian CPA, I can put it on my card. So that is one new change which has come. Now there are, as I said, many changes in solicitation and advertisement. Sponsorship. A chartered accountant firm cannot sponsor general events. So marathon is happening. I cannot go on sponsoring the marathon. But a chartered accountant firm can sponsor the event by program organizing unit. So if a study circle or branch, or you can say a branch or regional council or any of the institute program is being organized by program organizing unit, a firm can sponsor that, provided the institute give permission through CP directorate for such sponsoring. Whereas if I am giving any CSR donation, now it has been asked that if I'm not allowed to put my name, then what is the use? Because when one gives CSR donation, their names etc. are printed, so we cannot have control on that. So their institute has clarified now in code that we can have prefix CA in before our name when we give a CSR donation, but the mention of firm name or CA logo should not be done in that CSR donation form or that kind of an printing. Now, advertising about coaching. This guideline was also there. This announcement was also there on 17th May, 18th May 2017. Now it has been properly included in volume 2. What does this announcement say? If a chartered accountant in practice, generally we are allowed to do a coaching activity if it is less than 25 teaching hours per week. Now, if I am allowed to do this coaching activity, if I'm coaching in one coaching class, I cannot advertise that coaching class in my name, or my name should not appear on the advertisement on that coaching class. There was a case in front of our bench only where such a name was printed, a coaching class holding was there, and on that name, on that holding, the name of CA was there. And there it was mentioned that practicing chartered accountant, expert in GST or whatever, expert in taxation. So that kind of advertisements are not at all allowed. So one cannot say कि ये मेरा नहीं है जो class का advertisement है, that is not allowed now. Of course, class can have its own advertisement where the practicing chartered accountant name is not there. There is no issue at all. Correct? So that advertisement can be there, but CA's name, one who is in practice, cannot be there in this advertisement. TV movie credits are now being allowed. So generally, after movie or after television serial, the name of a chartered accountant firm, which is giving a consultancy or services to the production house. Now that was earlier specifically not mentioned, and now it has been clarified. It is allowed, provided that it should be in a normal mode. It is coming. There should not be any specific mention, or it should not come up in a different manner like other than other names. Interview, as I mentioned, interview can be allowed. Name mentioning the name of firm, etc. Right? That also is allowed, but it should not result in publicity as such. It should be only mentioning the facts. The factual information can be given. Otherwise, interview is allowed. In the books, articles, presentation, etc., also professional attainments are prohibited. However, name, my name in front of that CA is allowed, and see my firm name is also allowed in that. Right? So professional attainments are should not be given. So I'm expert in such and such thing. So if I'm publishing an article on GST, and I mentioned there Mangesh Kindre so and so firm, expert in GST. Now that last thing is not allowed. Mangesh Kindre name of firm is allowed, right? So that expertise or additional thing, professional attainments, additional things should not be allowed in that. Uploading the educational videos. There was no clarification or no information regarding this. These days, you can see in the COVID era also, genuinely also people upload their professional videos for the sake of understanding of their clients, friends, many people. Now, such kind of uploading of educational videos, when I upload my video on YouTube, it is allowed, provided I am not mentioning the firm name in it. I should not mention it. I can mention Sir Mangesh Kindre. I cannot mention my firm name in that educational video. Advertisement for celebrations of silver jubilee, golden jubilee, etc. Big firms, many big firms, when they complete their silver jubilee, they organize certain programs. Now, for the sake of information to their clients or people who are associated with that firm, they would like to advertise. And here, I think some relaxation has been given by the institute. Such publication of advertisement regarding the celebrations are allowed, but in a limited manner. You cannot go on advertising, because our main fundamental principle of professional behavior again comes into picture here, according to me. I am slightly more conservative in these kind of things, wherever such allowance is there. And in a limited manner, giving the factual situation without highlighting our professional attainments or what kind of clients we have. So that kind of a celebration announcement can be there in the newspaper. so that it is just an information material to people. Now, the disadvantage should not be taken by people because it is very clearly mentioned for such kind of celebration only it is there. So I am celebrating 5 years or 1 or 2 years of my practice. Such kind of things, cheap things should not be done by chartered accountants. Please, let's be very clear that relaxation whenever institute is giving, let's take it in that right perspective. As far as signboards are concerned, we all know that we cannot have a glow signboard or illuminated signboard like traders, etc., with neon lights and all. But one clarification has come here that while keeping in the mind the appropriate visibility and illumination of the signboard, we can have our signboard. Now, what does that mean? That means that if a signboard requires a certain amount of illumination, depending upon the facts of the each case, everywhere the same things is not applicable. So generally, nine signboards, glow signboards or neon signboards or illuminated signboards are not allowed. But in exceptional circumstances, a limited manner can be done if the requirements are such that it has to become a little bit more visible amongst the other signboards also. But one has to again interpret this in a very conservative manner according to me. Next one is very important these days because there are a lot of things going on internet. Chartered accountants can appear in movie or television serials, etc. Right? We have seen that we can appear on television interviews, we can appear in movies, we can give some interviews. Now, such kind of things have started on internet also, which we are experiencing right now. In this COVID era, also we have seen that a lot of e-lectures or webinars are going on. Now, these kind of webinars, one can appear on internet and one can take the sessions or give an interview, etc. But here, what is interesting is the firm name also can be mentioned. However, the exaggerated claim or any kind of comparison is not permissible. For example, you have organized my session. Now, I can come and take my session. I can give my firm name also, mention my firm name somewhere in my presentation also. But I cannot mention that I'm expert in that, or at the end of my presentation, I say that, no, come to me, I'll solve your issue. These kind of claims or comparison, I'm expert in it as compared to the rest of the people in Dadar in this, that kind of thing, I cannot explain. I cannot mention in my presentation. I would like to highlight one subtle change here, subtle difference in two provisions. In the earlier slide, we have seen that uploading of educational video is possible, but firm name cannot be given, individual name can be given. Whereas when I'm appearing on internet, my firm name can be given. The difference is when I upload my video, then I cannot give my firm name. When I appear on internet, say I'm appearing right now in the program organized by others, my firm name can be given. Subsequently, if Meher and Pritish distribute this or make this viral, I mention my firm name and make them this viral, I am not responsible for that. So I have not uploaded it, so my firm name is allowed. When I upload the educational video, my firm name is not allowed. That is a subtle difference in these two provisions. I have personally requested the institute to clarify these. Let's see what happens. Next changes is network. We have seen the change regarding network. As regard logo, also this logo guideline has now been specifically included in the volume 2, where we are not allowed to have our own logo. We can take only CA logo, that is CA and reverse tick. We cannot have any emblem or that Garuda emblem also. So we have to follow those logo guidelines. There is one advisory which I would like to draw your attention on 20th April 2020, which is there on site. I'll explain that very briefly because there's no point in going through this. I have mentioned the entire advisory here. In this COVID era, genuinely, some people said that with a good intention that we will give services or we'll give free services to the COVID warriors. We'll file free return of the doctors or nurses or policemen, etc., etc. It was a good intention. But the institute, it was written to institute whether such kind of things are allowed, and that's why this clarification has come. However good intention it may be, people can take disadvantage out of it, and nowhere in our regulations or code we are allowed to mention our fees. In response to some inquiry, we may mention the fees to that individual person, but in any advertisement or write-up, I cannot mention the fees, and therefore, last line I am reading, accordingly it is clarified that quantum of fees, including free of charge, whatsoever, should not be mentioned by the members in any advertisement of services or posting the particulars. So this kind of a quantum of fees we cannot mention. Even a zero fees is a quantum, is a fees. That's why this clarification is very relevant, I thought. As I said, there are changes in the write-up guidelines. We have seen what is earlier guidelines. Now, what are the changes? The changes are not something which is changing the purpose of that. Changes are making it more strong and more straight. The new changes are that it should be honest and truthful. It should, earlier it was saying it should not be false and it should not be misleading. So it was in a negative manner. Now it has been made more emphatic in a positive manner. It shall be honest and truthful. There should be no exaggerated claims. You have seen that there cannot be any exaggerated claim about the members, their expertise, their qualifications, etc., etc. It should be in a nature in such a manner that it should not bring professional disrepute. It should not contain testimonials or endorsement of any kind. It should not mention names of client. It should not be violative of our act and guidelines. It should not be more than font size 14. Same things are there, and but it is more mentioned in more emphatic manner. My write-up cannot include the information about the awards and achievements, etc. Now, here one exception has been given, except award given by central government, state government, or regulatory bodies, right? So it should not include any award, any position, any accreditation. No monogram is allowed in this write-up, but it should include my membership number and FRN, which is mandatory. This is regarding write-up, advertisement, and solicitation. Next is regarding appointment as auditors. This clause 9 of part 1 of first schedule says that when I'm appointed as an auditor of a company, I should see to it that the requirements of Companies Act have been complied with. Now, it was mentioning section 225 of Companies Act. Now it has been replaced by section 139 and 140 of Companies Act 2013. That is only a change. But I have taken this because it is very important that when I'm appointed as an auditor, I must see that my formalities of appointment has been properly done or not. In Companies Act, the formality of appointment is that it should be passed in AGM. So council guidelines says that whether that AGM was held or not, that also we must inquire and take the proof on our record if it is possible. We also should take the certified copy from the chairman of the company regarding the resolution in which we have been, the minutes of the meeting in which we have been appointed as an auditor. Now, when I'm dealing with this, I think I should also mention as a suggestion from as a professional colleague to you that it is, although the clause says only about the Companies Act, it is applicable to everything, especially in case of trusts. Because in case of trust, there is no time to discuss the case studies. Otherwise, there are a lot of case studies in front of our disciplinary bench. I have handled or we have pronounced many judgments also in that. So it has so happened that trustees do not have the trust within themselves. So we may be appointed by one trustee, but the other trustees might not be knowing it, and so on and so forth. Similarly, we may be appointed by one director, but the other directors may not be knowing it, and they can dispute it later on. So please see to it that our appointments have been properly made. The next clause is about the change in auditors and auditors communication. Very important. We all know that the clause 8 of first schedule says that when I am appointed as an auditor, when any chartered accountant is appointed in a position as an auditor previously held by another chartered accountant, I am supposed to communicate with that chartered accountant. So if I accept the position without communicating with the chartered accountant in whose position I have been appointed as an auditor, it will be treated as misconduct. Now, it's very clear from the language, one can see that position as auditor. So it is all audits applicable to all types of audits. Secondly, previously held by another chartered accountant. It is not previous year's chartered accountant, previous year's auditor. So in tax audit, typically in first year there is an audit, second year there is no audit, third year there is again an audit. The third year auditor is supposed to communicate with the first year auditor. He cannot say that last year में audit नहीं था इसलिए communication था ही नहीं किसी से. It's not previous year, it is previously held by another chartered accountant. And the important aspect, communication should be before acceptance of audit. Now, typically, of course, in the Udin era, it may not occur, but typically in private limited companies, we conduct the tax audit and statutory audit together. Many times it is done in the month of September. There is a change in the month of September. The case has happened in front of our bench. There was a change on 5th September. The earlier auditor also said, gave no objection, no problem, you go ahead with that. But subsequently, when the chartered accountant audited and prepared the audit report for the sake of accommodating the client, because companies have to have their AGM before 30th September, he put the date of August. Now the communication had got from him on say 6th September. When subsequently there was a dispute amongst between these chartered accountants, and the outgoing chartered accountant filed a case against this incoming chartered accountant saying that I said yes because I thought that you have not accepted the audit, but you have completed the audit before you wrote to me. So you have written to me, you have communicated to me after doing the audit before acceptance, not before acceptance of audit. So the incoming chartered accountant was held guilty. So we should communicate it before acceptance of audit. We are discussing the mode of communication in a subsequent slide. Right? There are changes in the mode of communication. We will discuss it in a subsequent slide. So there is nothing like NOC as such. There is one more important aspect, the Council Guidelines 2008. Now, what does that Council Guideline 2008 says? A member of an institute in practice shall not accept an appointment as an auditor of an entity if the undisputed chartered accountant for carrying out the statutory audit of that entity under Companies Act 1956 or various other statute has not been paid. So any audit, if I get under any statute, my first duty is to see that the earlier auditor fees has been paid or not. If the earlier auditor fees has not been paid, I shall not accept. It is shall not accept. Right? It is a compulsion that I will not take this work at all. Now, therefore, the sequence, I think, what is undisputed fee? Undisputed fee, which is provided in the books of account, signed by auditor as well as auditee. And this is not applicable. This clause is not applicable where it is the audit is relating to SIC unit. The SIC unit means what? It is which is having the negative net worth. Now, friends, therefore, the sequence according to me should be like this. When I'm appointed as an auditor, when I'm appointed simple consultant or chartered accountant, there is no issue about communication as such. But when I'm appointed as an auditor, if it is a statutory audit, I must first check from the books of account whether the auditor's fees has been paid or not. If it is not paid and if it is undisputed, I shall not accept the audit. This is not applicable regarding the audits which are not under statutes, right? It is in that case only communication is required. So if it's a statutory audit, I should communicate. If it is undisputed fees is unpaid, then I shall not accept. If the client says that it is paid and if the proof is there, then I can communicate with the client and communicate with the earlier auditor and ask him whether he has any professional objection or not. And if he says that my fees is not paid, then I should again reassess whether it is an undisputed fee which is not paid or not. Now, what is undisputed fee? According to me, one has to be very conservative. Just because client says that this is not undisputed, this is disputed fees. I don't want to pay, this is disputed fees. Does that create a dispute? Dispute is created when there is a communication between the two parties. It may not go to the court of law, but there has to be some kind of this thing. And simply because he has denied it, he has signed it, but then he has denied, then it cannot become a dispute. There has to be valid reason for that. So please take care. Just because client is saying it is disputed fees, don't rely on that. So one has to see that I'm communicating with the earlier auditor in such a manner that that I'm getting the proper response from him. Now, therefore, the NOC limited manner comes into picture only here. What does it say? That when I'm in a certain circumstances where there is one can say that there are actually financial crunch to the client, then the client also is not willing to pay, is not able to pay fees to the earlier auditor. Earlier auditor also feels that okay, itne saal kaam kiya hai, chalo no problem, baad mein de dena. But as an incoming auditor, we must be extra cautious in taking such work. At that point of time, that earlier CA may not have an objection. So that has to be documented properly. So simple NOC that you can carry out the work. If the fees is outstanding, I feel that one has to be very careful. There has to be proper concrete evidence with us that the fees will be paid to the earlier chartered accountant in so and so mode. The earlier chartered accountant is also agreeable to it and therefore he is giving NOC. right? So one has to be very extra cautious in communication. Now, as far as communication is concerned, what is the intention here? What kind of a mode is required? If you see here, what is the wording? Members should therefore communicate with the retiring auditor in such a manner as to retain the positive evidence of the delivery of the communication. Now, when I have to have a positive evidence of delivery of communication, as of today, only two types of communications are allowed. That is hand delivery with an acknowledgement on that, and the registered sending by a registered post with an acknowledgement due, and acknowledgement is received. Now, that is only two things which are acceptable right now. Courier is not acceptable. There is one major change. There are two changes which have been made. Two additional modes of communication have been added now. What are these? Please read it. Email communication is not now allowed. Now, when I say that, please read it very carefully. Acknowledgement of communication from retiring auditor via email address registered with the institute or last known email address to the that earlier auditor. Now, very important. First of all, it should be on an email address registered with the institute or last known email address to me. Now, last known means it should not be last known for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Now, last known means if there is any communication with him by the client, then that on that communication, on that letterhead, on the last year's report which was given, the email address has been mentioned. Better to find out whether it is registered with the institute. And more importantly, it should be acknowledged by that earlier chartered accountant. So if I simply send the mail and it is unanswered, it is not accepted mode of communication. So that one has to be very careful in email communication. The fourth one is the communication through unique identification number generated on UDIN portal. In this regard, council has to come up with the guidelines. Perhaps according to me, or what I feel is, this will lead to a proper foolproof communication, if it is, whatever, depending upon the guidelines which are to be issued by the institute. But these are yet to come. As I mentioned in the volume 1, now there is a duty casted upon the earlier auditor also, that whenever the auditor is changed, the previous or predecessor auditor also should respond to the auditor and should highlight to the auditor whatever in his knowledge about the client. In the sense that subject to the confidentiality clause, he must bring about certain aspects which are important for person to handle the engagement in future. So that is a good thing. So when we communicate now, rather than mentioning only whether you have any professional objection, we should also mention that whether you would like to highlight certain matter which we should take care in executing our professional duties. We can add that so that one will have to respond to it. So this is regarding the communication. There are two important aspects or two kind of situations which have been clarified here. Typically, when we send it by registered AD post, on acknowledgement, it is we found that it is written that office was found locked or no such office found at that place. Now, in this case, the institute says in the code of ethics now that if this is the address registered with the institute, then this is expected or this is deemed to have been delivered. This communication is deemed to have been delivered to that predecessor auditor. So this is a good welcome clarification, because this will avoid a lot of confusions in the mind of incoming auditors. Next is the engagement in other businesses and profession. We all know that as a practicing chartered accountant, I am not allowed to engage in any other business or profession, except there's one exception, that I can be a director simpliciter in the company. Now, director in the company, not being a managing or whole-time director. Now, director simpliciter has been clearly defined now in new code, new volume 2. It says that it means ordinary or simple director who is not managing or whole-time director and is required only in the board meetings of the company and not paid any remuneration other than the fees attending such meeting. So I cannot be getting any kind of fees other than my sitting fees. I cannot attend, or I should not be involved in any of the activities of the company. That is a director simpliciter. One has to be very careful if you are a director of a private limited company. There have been instances, there have been a case where there were suppose 3, 4 directors of a company. There was only one director available, and the bank wanted to have some kind of a loan document signed by 2 directors, and therefore the independent director was requested, please come and sign it. खाली sign ही करना है, कुछ है नहीं इसमें. Subsequently, there was a dispute of the other directors who were not present at that point of time, and they filed a case against this chartered accountant, saying that you are not a director simplicitous, you are engaged in the business. Although seems to be a little bit harsh, the provisions are like that because because otherwise, if the institute starts allowing, then there's a no limit to it. And that's why it's a very strict provision. We cannot sign, we cannot get involved in any kind of business activities as a director, independent director, if we are a director simpliciter. Now, there were a lot of queries asked if, as regards company, it is allowed, director simpliciter, then as regards LLP, doing a business, whether I am allowed to do, allowed to be a, what is that, non-designated, non-remuneration partner. Now here in this code, volume 2, new code, it has been very clearly explained. Now, as I said, these changes does not mean that earlier it was applicable. Earlier it was allowable. Now it has been stopped. It is not like that. It is a clarificatory change. It says that no equivalent of director simpliciter in LLPs. A member in practice cannot become partner or designated partner or any such non-working, non-remuneration drawing partner in a LLP not carrying out the chartered accountancy professional work. In a CA firm, which is LLP, I can become a partner. But in a non-CA firm, not doing a professional work, I cannot be even a non-remuneration drawing partner called a sleeping partner. I cannot become that. As regards HUF, certain restrictions have been again emphatically stated. You all know that as a chartered accountant, I cannot carry out any business myself or my HUF also. Now, there can be certain circumstances, certain scenario where I may become a member or a karta of an HUF, which is carrying on a business activity. Now, that can be possible only by way of inheritance, succession, or partition. Now, if it happens like that, I am supposed to go to the institute and ask for the specific approval. If I'm a karta, by default, I become a karta of that HUF, then I should desist from involving in any activities. I should not play any active role in that HUF. I should write to institute and I should get permission from the institute in that regard. And having done so, after doing so also, I will not be allowed to do any kind of attest function in my profession. So no audits can be done, no signatures, attest functions can be done by me in my profession. So I can become, I cannot become, I can be a member by default or a karta by default of an HUF which is carrying on a business only in 3 circumstances: inheritance, succession, and partition of family business, provided, and I continue to be a holding COP, provided I apply to the institute for no objection or prior approval of the institute. I give an undertaking to the institute and I don't do any kind of an active role in the business of the HUF, and I will not be able to do any kind of a test functions in my chartered accounting practice. So these are quite harsh provision regarding the HUF. So especially harsh for members. I'm not saying karta, but especially harsh for a member of HUF. If I'm a member, by default, I'm becoming member. I'll have to come out. Otherwise, if I want to do an attest function out of it. So this is regarding entering into other business in profession. 190A or Appendix 9, just for the information, these activities are allowed. There are general permissions where we need not apply separately to the institute, and there are specific permissions where we have to apply for the institute to carry out these activities. Now, I would like to draw your attention to the last aspect of a general permission, that is owning agricultural land and carrying agricultural activity. So general permission is there, but it should be taken conservatively according to me. If I start doing an activity in such a manner that it is establishing that I'm doing a business, so I'm going and acquiring a new land, doing different kinds of experiments in that, cultivating that, hiring different labor, organizing different kind of a marketing of for my agricultural produce, then it becomes a business activity. So it's a मेरे पास कोई लैंड है या लैंड मैंने खरीदी है फॉर द सेक ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर, मतलब आई लाइक इट, इसलिए so that is allowed as an additional activity, but it should not become your business activity per se. That is very important. That is my opinion, of course, as a conservativeness, because it can tend to be a business activity without you know that it's a business activity. Next is an independence. I'll just quickly, another 5-7 minutes, I will conclude. As regard independence, there we all know that we are supposed to be independent when we do the audit of the companies, etc. And the independence criteria also has been explained in Appendix 9 to CA regulation. Substantial interest has been explained. That is 20% of voting power. I'm not going in detail of that because there are additions which have been made in that. Now, there is a guidance note on independence of auditors also, which is very clearly mentioning the circumstances in which we can be assessed whether we are independent or not. I will draw your last but third pointer, draw your attention. In case of appointments done by RBI, CNAG, we cannot accept any other assignment within 1 year of the completion of an audit assignment. And interestingly, auditor cannot provide, we all know that these are the existing provisions. Auditor cannot provide internal audit or accounting or bookkeeping services, right? So valuation and IT system, etc. also. Now, this 40% and the new fee, new provision also I've explained to you. I will draw your attention to the changes. The modification in the situation of conflict of interest in accordance with Companies Act 2013 has been made. So you know that section 143, I think, of Companies Act, which is there in the next slide, is putting some disqualifications on the chartered accountant auditors, where there is a conflict of interest is bound to happen. Now, earlier reference was not there in Code of Ethics to it, and it was only restricted to that 20% voting power which was there. Now, modification in the situation of conflict of interest has been made, so those situations have been added. Reference has been made that one can refer to the Companies Act 2013 also in that. So other situations which are there regarding conflict based, for example, internal auditor cannot be a tax auditor and vice versa, that still remains as it is in the new code also. Additionally, one more condition has been put as far as independence is concerned. If I'm an independent director in a company, after ceasing to be an independent director of that company, I cannot become the auditor of the same company for 2 years. So there is a cooling off period of 2 years for the independent directors. So after I cease to be an independent director of company, I cannot immediately take up audit of that company. I have to wait for 2 years. So that is change which has happened or which is going to happen in the new code. As I mentioned, these are the provisions of Companies Act 2013 for section 141(3), which are now aligned with this conflict of interest provisions of the Appendix 9. I mean, we all know that as it is, we could not have accepted it, but it was creating a contradiction, and that's why it has been referred in the Code of Ethics now. There are a couple of more changes in the other assignments. It was earlier mentioned that insurance finance, I mean, the earlier provision you can see in the black font, insurance financial advisory services under IRDA Act 1999, including insurance brokerage, was allowed. Now, it was creating a confusion whether I am allowed an insurance agency. So the clarification has come, not including insurance agency. What is difference between insurance financial advisory and insurance agency? Typically, if a client comes to me with a different types of an insurance plan and he wants to get an insurance for his life or assets, so he comes with a different plans and different types of companies and comes up with the proposal. I am able to I am allowed to advise such client and take a fees from that client. But I cannot propagate one insurance company and have an agency and get a commission or payback from that insurance company. That is not allowed. As far as valuation also, earlier it was merely mentioned that valuation of shares, business, etc. In amalgamation merger is allowed. But now it is mentioned that acting, if I'm acting as a registered valuer under Companies Act, read with the rules respectively. So I am to be registered valuer to act as a valuer. Fees on contingencies and percentage is not allowed. I'm just quickly winding up because there are not amendments in this, but there are important aspects which I just wanted to highlight. And the provisions are there in front of you. Just one thing I would like to highlight here, even agreeing to charge the fees on contingencies or percentage basis is also not allowed. So even if we enter into any kind of a terms of reference, that also is not allowed to us. I mean, this will not be there after UDIN, but allowing any CA to practice in our name. If we find that any other CA is practicing in our name and we are not taking any action, so then it will be held guilty. So our ethics demand, Code of Ethics demand that we should highlight that it is not me who is signing, and we should bring it to the notice of the institute if possible, and it will be ideal to file even FIR in that case. There are certain certificates and reports, not going in detail, but people are many times asked with the certificates of turnover, net worth, etc. I would like to draw your attention that all kinds of certificates and reports, which are not normally our audit report, etc., There is a guidance note of the institute, guidance note on reports and certificate for special purposes. We can refer to that. Just want to highlight one thing here, that I have taken one report, illustration report from this guidance note. It is there in the guidance note. There's no point in reading out lines. Just want to highlight a couple of things, three things in that, rather four things in that. One is that I should get the terms of engagement or letter from the client regarding the appointment, or why this letter is, why this certificate is required. I'll give you a very simple case which happened in front of us. When turnover certificate was required by a PWD authorities for a civil work. Now that person was doing a civil work also, and he was having some grain merchant work also, like adat work also in his proprietary concern. Now, if a turnover certificate is given in a combined manner, then whether it will be proper. So when somebody is asking me to give a turnover certificate, I should ask him what is the purpose? Give me an engagement letter, or give me a letter why you want it. Then if he wants to respond for tender, I must know about that tender also. So I should get a tender and see to it that we are complying with that, the certificate is complying with that tender condition or not. Whatever details are compiled in this certificate and reports, we must highlight that these are responsibility of management or client. Client has developed, or client has maintained, or client has compiled this detail. And my responsibility is only to verify it. If I'm verifying from audited accounts, I must mention which are the audited accounts. If I'm verifying it from accounts which are not audited, I must mention that on such and such date, trial balance which has been taken by me in a position, I am verifying it from those accounts. So this care has to be taken. And lastly, I would like to draw your attention, restriction on use. I must always mention in the certificates that what is the restriction on use. One cannot use it whenever or wherever he wants to use it. So that also is there. There is certifying, there is a clause 3 in the part 1 of second schedule, certifying estimated earnings. Now when project report, when people ask us that project report pe sign de do, Calcutta High Court has already mentioned that rule that CA cannot sign the project report. So we cannot sign the project report as such, but our standards on assurance engagement allows us to certify the examination of prospective financial information. Not going in detail of that this format. Again, the format, illustrative format is there in front of you. Earlier one was a guidance note. This is a standard, so it's a compulsion terms. So in a limited manner, I can certify that. And what is that limited manner? I'm just highlighting the second last para. Second last para, first line is, you can see that examination of prospective financial information is being done on test basis, first of all, right? Again, the first para you can see here on this slide, the projection has been prepared a set of assumption on the basis of state of assumption that includes hypothetical assumptions about future events and the management's expectation of not necessarily expected to occur. Now, last para, if you see that I have properly prepared on the basis of assumption. The projections have been properly prepared on the basis of assumption. And last line says that the anticipated events, we are not taking responsibility that this will occur. So what I am certifying is the assumptions, the reasonability of assumptions, and on the basis of these assumptions, the calculations has been made or not. That is the only limited thing which I am certifying, and one can certify in that respect. I am not certifying the project report of the client. Clauses of second schedule, I am not going in detail of that. Only in one line I can say that all these clauses means that when I'm doing an audit, I must get all the information. I should disclose all the material fact, all the material misstatements, etc. And I should not hide anything, or I must inquire to the best of my knowledge. I cannot say tomorrow that this information was not available to you, what I can do. If it was not available to you, then it has to come in your report. If it has come in the report, then is no problem at all. But if you're not qualified, or if you're not putting such proper disclosures, then it will create an issue for you. Even it has happened that there was no transaction in bank account except for interest. And that bank account was not given to an auditor, but auditor did not mention anything about it. Although the effect on the financial statement was very less, the auditor was guilty. So all these important aspects we should take. I'll just take last slide, or the couple of slides in 2 minutes only. This next is a confidentiality and custody of client's asset. Now one has to be very careful about confidentiality. As I mentioned, it is a fundamental principle, confidentiality. So whatever information is there with me of the client, I should not disclose it unless statutorily it is required. So, in a bank proposal in front of our bench, it so happened that in a bank proposal, the chartered accountant was asked information about godowns and stock of the client, and he gave details of all godown. Unfortunately, the client of that chartered accountant, he was not sent. तो कहीं वो कुछ साधु नहीं था, so he didn't want to disclose one godown, and he charged the chartered accountant saying that why you have disclosed the information without asking me. So such things might happen. So we have to be very careful about it, and failure to keep the money in a separate account and use it. See, I draw your attention to the last line. Use it in the reasonable time intended for it. So even if I receive for advance tax some money, I have kept it in a separate account, I should immediately pay the advance tax. One should not keep it for sizable time. 14 दिन 15 तारीख last date है, तब तक मैं देखूंगा. So please don't do that. Pay it immediately after you receive it, because the client can charge you. This case has happened. I'm not discussing in detail. The client can charge you that you have used my money for at least 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 5 days, whatever it may be. So please pay it. Confidentiality and custody of clients asset. Friends, I will again highlight here one thing, although nothing is mentioned on the slide. These days, the digital signatures are assets of the client. So when I'm keeping the custody of assets of the client, I must be very careful. I'll draw your attention to the earlier slide in volume 1. I am allowed to do an administrative services only. I should not step into the shoes of the management. So care should be taken in the use of digital signature of client, and we should not preempt, and we should not enthusiastically execute something which will lead to a conclusion that I have used this client and client's digital signature, and I have stepped into the management responsibility. And last but not the least, that while giving the information to the institute or responding to any tender, all the correct information should be stated, right? So in my what is that write up or profile, whatever information I am giving should be correct. You all know that chartered accountant may be associated, young chartered accountant may be associated with your firm, taking assignments from you, but he is not employee of your firm. So you cannot put it in your profile that qualified assistant one. No, because that information has to be registered with the institute. And if it is not registered with the institute as your employee, you cannot show him as an employee. Even articles like information, we loosely write 4, 5, 6, whatever the figure. Please write the correct information. See when the articles are completed of your students, and write the only live articles, whatever continuing articles numbers only, because this is very relevant. And this is the last slide. Let's stop here. That clause number 7 of second schedule, it's mother of all. It's covering everything, right? It says that chartered accountant will be guilty if he does not exercise due diligence or found grossly negligent. Does not exercise due diligence means even a 0.001% I'm wrong in my certification. In my report, if I'm wrong and I'm not given a proper disclosures for it, then it's a different thing. But in my certification, even something is wrong, I'll be held responsible. So we have to be utmostly due diligent and utmostly taking care while executing our professional duties. Not only that, I draw your attention to the last point on this slide, that I will be held guilty of misconduct if I am bringing disrepute to the profession or the institute as a result of my action, whether related to profession or not. So I am supposed to be diligent not only in my profession but also outside world also. I should not do any act which will bring disrepute to my institute, right? So one has to be very diligent, upright, and following the ethical values and ethics which have been specified by the institute. And I know that every one of us is by nature is ethical. I'm not just because we are listening to this session that we are not following that, and that's why we want to follow it. But some kind of confusion, some kind of a clarification, some kind of issues may be there. Only one thing we have to take care, that we should not be attached to clients so much, and violation may come or may happen from small and medium practitioners or chartered accountants, mainly because we are getting attached to client. So if we are getting detached in that manner, and observe the ethics, not only in terms of observing ourselves, but demonstrating also. Demonstrating means the documentation, because generally I might have observed, but I am not able to document it, I am not able to prove it. That kind of thing should not happen. मैंने information मांगा था का मतलब क्या है? Whether I have written it. So ethics should be observed as well as demonstrated, and I'm pretty sure every one of us will take it in a positive manner, and we are ethical and we will remain ethical in future also. So thank you very much for patient listening. I hope might have added some positive things to everybody's mind. Thanks a lot. Thank you, conveners. Thanks, Dadar Prabhadevi Study Circle.
Thank you, sir. That was a very good presentation, very well explained. We have a few questions from our participants. If we can answer them, should I? I'll be giving the questions. Okay. One of the first question is: was there some provision for being a partner in a family business permissible under CA Code of Ethics? Is it now permissible without the permission of the institute? And can I be a sleeping partner in family business partnership?
What I am not able to, you're not perfectly audible, but what I understand is, if I'm a partner in a business concern, a family business concern, whether it is allowed or it was allowed or it is allowed or not, and whether I can be a sleeping partner with such concern or not. See, I cannot become a member in any firm or any entity carrying on the business. There are specific circumstances under which, because of such kind of, we have discussed in HUF, that because of family partition or because there is nobody in the family, suppose I am the only son, there is no sister, nothing, no, I mean, after the death of, the father, a chartered accountant, is the only sole survivor in the family. That can be a very, very exceptional circumstances. Under those exceptional circumstances, one has to apply to the council. Council will take into consideration. It does not mean that it will give. They will have to consider it. They will have to take 100% or 200% precaution, and then only they will give. There is no question of any sleeping partner at all. Because if you are becoming a partner in a business entity, you are a partner in the business entity. Sleeping or non-sleeping or whatever it may be, it is not allowed. So when you are becoming a partner in that entity, it means otherwise also that entity could have run, is it not, in a proprietary manner? So that cannot be done. Only one instance you can apply, that if a chartered accountant is father is a businessman and father expires and there is nobody, practically nobody in the family, then perhaps in certain circumstances it is possible. I'll give an example which is recently happened where council has denied. Denied means I don't know whether it's denied or not, but they will deny that in a partnership firm of a family entity, there were certain licenses in that firm. There was one brother is a partner in that firm. Other brother is a chartered accountant in practice. Father and brother were the partners. Father expired. Now to have a continuity, the other brother, whether other brother can become a partner in that firm, it was denied. It will be denied for that matter.
Okay. Now, next question is, in case of bank concurrent audits or any other such bank assignments, the details of the previous auditor are shared only after the assignment is accepted. How do we overcome this situation?
No, they will give you, definitely they will give you. Recently we have accepted, when we got an appointment letter, we asked them that who are the earlier auditors, kindly convey, because our code of ethics requires us to respond only after, or accept only after we communicate with the earlier auditor. But in case of bank audits, I mean, I skipped that slide actually. In case of bank audit, statutory audit I'm talking about, not concurrent audit. What happens is we have to execute the work in a limited time, and time is not sufficient to get the communication back. So in these cases, council, the code of ethics allows me to communicate with the earlier chartered accountant, at the same time give a conditional acceptance to the bank, saying that I have communicated with the earlier auditor till the time the communication is received, and if there is no till the time there is no objection, this should be treated as my conditional acceptance. So that is limited manner it is being allowed. But concurrent audit, I should have the name of the chartered accountant and I'll get it. Definitely they will give it.
Okay.
We should ask for it.
Okay. All right. Okay. The next question is, during the fees discussion with a potentially new client, negotiations state, like, the client would come up with the thing that there is another CA who is ready to perform the same service for a lower fees. Now, in such case, whether such negotiation would amount to undercutting, though not documented anywhere, but would it amount to any violation of the code of conduct, code of ethics?
फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल अंडरकटिंग का जो फर्स्ट रेस्ट्रिक्शन पहले रेस्ट्रिक्शन हुआ करता था वो अभी नहीं है इन अ कोड ऑफ एथिक्स, राइट? सो देयर इज नो इशू
Mhm.
एट ऑल. Negotiation, when it is done, it should be in a justified manner. If in a justified manner fees are discussed, then there will be no issues at all. Other chartered accountant क्या कर रहा है क्या नहीं कर रहा है. If somebody asks me what will be your fees, then this is, I say X. He says that other person is charging X minus 10,000. Then I say, okay, I'll charge X minus 5,000. Then my wordings are very important. Just because he is saying, whether I'm saying X minus 5,000, that is very relevant. If by way of working, I say that I have reworked my thing and now I can quote this much of fees, that is okay. So you have to justify yourself. As such, undercutting is not a clause which is there in a new code, in 2009 code also, for that matter.
Okay. Okay. The next question, I'm combining two queries here. If I have another degree, let us say CFA or CS, CWA or CISA, can I include that as my qualification on my visiting card or such stationery?
Yes. All recognized degree. Now CFA India is not recognized degree, but CFA USA is recognized. But there is no MRA with the CFA institute, so I'm doubtful about the CFA. But ICWA, ICCS, yes, no issues. BCom, LLB, whatever, BSc, whatever. I mean, whatever degree or AICT approved degree one is taking, or government approved degree one is taking, no issues at all. But any private university or private this thing, one has to check whether that is approved university or not when you are putting it on your card. I forgot to mention that ICAI diplomas are allowed. There are only 4 ICAI diplomas according to me at the present, right? DISA, DIRM, DMBF, and Diploma in International Tax. We are not allowed to write certificate courses on our cards at all, or on stationery.
All right. Okay. Can we upload videos on our own website without mentioning of pricing?
See, website rule, I don't think allow any videos per se. I mean, because see, uploading video, the firm name should not be mentioned. That is the main crux. Now, that's what I have personally written. Because if I'm allowed to have a website, I'm allowed to train my staff and this thing by website. And I'm allowed to upload the videos separately. Why this cannot be combined? That's what I also written. But right now, I feel that whether uploading of video on own website, will create, because then it will be kind of a push thing rather than pull concept. And another thing is that in case of uploading of video, the provision says that I can't put my firm name. When I'm uploading on my firm's website, it is very clear that which firm it is it not? It has the reference of the firm. So it will violate in that sense. So I have asked for a clarification and modification also in that. But this is my request as an individual member. So let's see what happens.
Okay. Okay. Now, can we be members of, say, LinkedIn or ASOCAM or any such other body where there is no referral as such happening?
Yeah. I mentioned that in a social organization where you are joining it as for a social organization or a business organization in the sense the kind of a chamber of commerce like organization, there is no problem. It is basically a network where when I become a member of ASOCAM or in a chamber of industry or chamber of commerce, my intention is to serve to that business, what you can say, interest. My intention at the back of the mind, the intention may be getting a more professional work. But the preamble, the form, or the kind of agreement which I make, that does not mention that this will, whatever new work comes to you, you will give to us, our members only, whatever new work comes to us, we will give to you only. That kind of thing, restrictions, etc. are not there. So there is no harm in that. But becoming a member of a business networks is not allowed.
Okay. Okay, now in continuation to what you say, mentioning of these things. Now, if many office bearers of branches mention as certified from ICAI like FAFD, concurrent audit, etc., is this allowed? You mentioned that only diplomas can be mentioned, certificates cannot be
Mentioned
mentioned.
in Code of Ethics that certificate courses cannot be printed on the cards or letterhead.
Stationery. But then, does the institute take suo moto action against such office bearers or members?
No, no. Somebody brings to notice. See, which stationery? I mean, if I am giving you an introduction right now, say, for example, my introduction is being read out. You ask for my profile. In that, suppose I mentioned that he has done that diploma, whatever it may be. That's a different thing. That is not a professional stationery per se. But on my card, on my letterhead of my firm, I cannot print it.
Okay. Now, again, in continuation to the bank audit thing that we mentioned, there is a query. So, if the retiring auditor or resigned auditor has been getting 5 lakh as fee for the statutory audit, for the same audit, can the new chartered accountant quote a fee of 2 lakh and accept the audit?
You are talking about statutory audit of bank?
As far as I know, statutory audit, the RBI or the bank dictates the fees. There is a norm of it. I don't think I
Yeah,
can say that this is the fees I can.
yeah, I
Okay.
can't. But
Okay. Now,
any other audit for that matter, the fees I can always take for lesser fees because, as I said, undercutting is not a clause now. There's no harm.
of course.
Only thing is that I should have a justification. I should have
Okay.
justification.
Why am I charging the lower fees?
Yeah.
Okay. There is no new question. There was a mention about
I will
appearing
just
for
mention
appeals.
one thing because when I was in council, it was discussed. I don't know whether it is coming or not. Whenever suppose there is such kind of a complaint from anybody, right? And there's completely ridiculously less fees has been charged by the subsequent auditor. Then council may not take action per se, but council may ask for a peer review of that firm. I mean, that was in discussion. I don't know whether such decision has come or not. I don't think such decision has come so far, but it may come in future.
Okay, okay. Then, as you mentioned regarding appearing for the client, there's a clarification being sought whether the CA is prohibited from representing his client in a tax appeal, or does he need to appoint another CA for such appeal matter?
For audit client, I cannot appear. I'm talking about audit client. If I'm doing only tax practice or if I'm not doing any audit of his, there's no problem at all.
Uh-huh.
If I'm doing
Okay.
audit also, then I cannot handle his appellate matters.
Okay, okay. Now, in case of solicitations done in community newspaper or such other mouthpieces, does the institute take suo moto actions?
See, suo moto means what? If somebody sends it to there's an information case which can be taken. Suo moto means institute cannot know where what is printed. But if one sends the newspaper and if the disciplinary director feels that one has to start take an action, then definitely they'll take an action. We
Okay.
have taken, institute
Okay.
has taken the action in such cases also. Whenever,
Yes,
but it has to be
somebody has
sent
to
to them.
bring it to their notice.
Sorry.
Okay, somebody has
somebody
to bring it to their
somebody has
notice.
to bring to their notice, and somebody does not mean that one who is anonymously one cannot send it. Anonymous also
Oh,
institute is taking if at all it is completely of a serious nature.
okay. Okay. There's a scenario given. A group of CAs are planning to set up a private limited consultancy company of chartered accountants having branches at various places in India. The joining members may opt to join in addition to retaining their individual practice or firms. They can continue to apply for all statutory empanelments in their individual or existing firm names. The company so formed will form pool of professionals specialized in the area of their choice. Member having surplus work may share the same with other company members specialized in respective areas. This will be a win-win approach. Additionally, the profile of the company may fetch certain non-statutory assignments which are normally assigned only to big corporates. Is the above and in any contradiction of code of ethics or practice?
See, we there are guidelines for corporate form of practice. Now, one can go through that corporate form of practice way, and one can form the company in that limited sense. As per those, I'm not going, as I said, if I start going in each and every guideline, it will be A lot of time will
Yes,
take.
I
But please refer to the corporate guidelines on corporate form of practice. One chartered accountant can undertake such kind of work in a corporate form of practice, subject to approval of the institute. The institute has to approve it, that corporate form of practice. So that one can take, but otherwise you can't go do form a company and they're becoming a director. Now, when you are becoming a director, it should be a director simpliciter. You cannot get actively involved and get a money and all those things.
Okay. Okay, then if a loan is given by the client to a company where the partner of the audit firm is a director, is this a professional misconduct?
Loan is given to, sorry, repeat it please. Loan is given.
Loan is given by the client to the company where the partner of the audit firm is a director.
It will create an interest rate. It will definitely create interest. I think we'll have to refer to the Companies Act provision also, section 141(3). I think somewhere it is there.
Mhm. Okay, then, okay, are the non-applicability of the provisions of misconducts included in volume 1 and volume 2?
I just repeat, please. Question, please repeat.
Are the non-applicability of any of the provisions included in volume 1 and volume 2?
Non-applicability.
Yeah.
Non-applicability of what?
Non-applicability of the provisions of the code of conduct.
Huh?
Are they included? Is there a separate mention of it in volume 1 and volume 2?
No. What is applicable, that is only given. No? I frankly, I have not understood the question. Non-applicability
Okay,
of the
okay.
code of conduct. See, volume 1 and volume 2 itself is a part of a code of conduct.
Right, right.
Code of conduct ऐसे कुछ है नहीं. It's a code of ethics. Now, code of ethics, volume 1, volume 2, volume 3. Wherever, I mean, whatever circumstances are there, mainly the practical aspects have been discussed in volume 2. And in volume 2, whenever the practical aspects have been discussed, and I have discussed certain things, you know, in case of percentage basis, which regulation is there, in case of becoming a partner or sharing of fees, which regulation says 53A, 53B, and all those things. So those exceptions are discussed, which are there as per the act or as per the regulations or as per the guidelines of the institute.
Okay. Okay, now next question is there a checklist that can be used during an audit so that we can ensure that we are in compliance with code of ethics? This can probably be part of our audit work papers. If so, can you share the same, please?
See, for this purpose, there are different guidance note and standards on auditing which have been issued by the institute. Now we will have to develop. The institute has not developed a checklist per se, because if institute develops a checklist, then it can become a straight away people can take shelter of that. So institute has not come up with a standard checklist per se, but yes, in a different circumstances, in a different guidance note, illustrative formats, as we have seen, certain illustrative formats are being discussed, and different kind of standards on auditing are there. So we will have to develop the checklist for ourselves if we have to customize it and take it. So all these standards and all these guidelines are nothing but checklists, frankly speaking.
Okay, I think we'll stop the question session here. I'll invite Gaurav Save to
Right,
propose
Gaurav?
the vote. Yeah, he's also there. Gaurav, can you please unmute yourself? Yeah. Please take over, Gaurav.
Yeah, thank you, Pritesh. On behalf of Prabhadevi Dadar CP Study Circle, I thank Mangesh Kindre sir. In fact, in the audience itself, they have said, given the feedback, it was a really very good session. Your practical experience in the disciplinary board is also coming out, and the way you have answered all the doubts, I think most of our queries would have been sorted out. Thank you very much for your time and a very nice session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks a lot, conveners, Gaurav. Thank you very much. In fact, I could have discussed many case laws, but I could not discuss because of lack of time. Typically, this is 3.5 hours session minimum. But I know we have a restriction because in webinars, we cannot have long sessions. So thank you very much. I pray good health and good days for you. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks a lot. Good night.
Thank you very much. Good night.